You're listening to Blockchain 2025. The future is right now. Every week, we explore implications of the technology underpinning cryptocurrencies. Blockchain.
Each episode is a standalone examination of one industry broken into 3 segments: a basic overview, blockchain's disruptive impact, and relevant crypto projects.
Blockchain 2025 is part of the Bitcoin.com podcast network. Learn about Bitcoin, create a wallet, and buy your first Satoshis all at Bitcoin.com.
Welcome to Season 5 of Blockchain 2025. This is Matt Aaron.
And I'm Blake Moore.
Blake, you made it, man. You made it. We brought you back. There was a lot of deliberation. I was like, God, we cannot bring Blake back for another season. But Roger was like, no, you have to. So, but whatever, man. I mean, it's cool. It's cool. I'm just kidding, man.
I'm sure we'll work it out, Matt.
I'm very happy to have you back. I think we're making a good team. And as people that have listened to the show since we started, we've had co-hosts move on, and you get in the rhythm after a certain amount of episodes. And Blake and I have done work on other podcasts as well. And so I continue that going forward. I think next year you may see us on YouTube. I mean, this episode's going out December 26th. So it's our last one of 2018. What a year.
What a year. What a year. Crazy year for us and a crazy year for blockchain too. I'm sure 2019 is going to be interesting too. I don't know how it's going to go. Time will tell.
And I'm really serious. Hey, speaking for myself, I may have lost 90% of my crypto portfolio, but I am so grateful, so happy, and so bullish on the future. Not just a price standpoint, but just seeing things kind of develop and come into place. We're still in beta, but having said that, I am so grateful. Today, we're actually recording. This is my 1-year anniversary at Bitcoin.com. I can't believe it's been a year.
Wow. Happy anniversary, Matt. Happy anniversary.
Dude, thank you, man. I wasn't fishing for compliments or anything, but in all seriousness, so people listening know, I came on. I'd started a hobby podcast on December 5th, 2017. I'll never forget it. I interviewed Roger, and then a week later, they're like, yeah, build the podcast network. And with an amazing team, that was at the height of the bull run. And the first show we launched was This Week in Bitcoin. And then we got up to 4 shows on the network. And every week, man, just putting out content, working hard to improve the shows. Isabel, we don't talk about enough. She makes us sound way better and does the sound editing. She's gotten so much better. My microphone equipment, just practicing a craft. I hope to do another year's worth of podcasts at least.
Yeah, the podcast network is shaping up really nicely. It's there seems to be some really interesting things on the horizon. I'm really enjoying doing Blockchain 2025. It's cool to be diving into these topics. And I'm excited about the one today too. I'm really, really pumped to get stuck into this one.
Yeah, and one last announcement before we start. Humans of Bitcoin, it's on a marketing website, did the top 15 Bitcoin podcast. And Humans of Bitcoin got number 6.
Wow.
So I was pretty happy about that. Check it out. I mean, I mentioned to you, Blake, Paul Poi on how to think about wallets, Stephen Pear of BitPay, the world's largest Bitcoin processor, and Marshall Long, the prince of mining, making $1 million a day in 2013. Kind of some of the OGs of crypto that keep a low profile on purpose, but have tons of insight. You got to check it out.
Yeah, I think you definitely have some pretty big names on here, right? And I think going back to one thing you said earlier about learning from others as well. I think with this bear market we're in now, I'm seeing so much from kind of the crypto OGs about how to handle this. And yeah, it's more exciting than ever. There's so much interesting stuff and the fundamentals have not changed. And next year is shaping up really, really nicely.
Yeah, I've seen this from multiple crypto OGs and they all say the same thing. Oh, everyone panicking right now. They must have gotten to crypto after 2015, and it seems to be unanimous that way.
Yeah.
Which includes, I think, Blake and myself.
Yeah.
I don't think we're panicking because we get paid to research and, interact with these sharp crypto original gangsters like Eric Voorhees, who are all white, by the way, but like Eric Voorhees, Roger Ver, Marshall Long. So it's really cool. In Blockchain 2025, I'm pretty adamant about this. We don't want to be a hype show. We're not afraid to call out things when they're either seem like completely illogical or, hey, be careful as an investment. But there's some hidden risks that we don't always talk about. And we wanted to cover those hidden risks. And the principal hidden risk is quantum computing. And we're going to get into that today. You should know about it. It's something to at least have in the back of your head, whether or not it will ever be a threat to Bitcoin and blockchain. But to start off, Blake, how do you spell quantum? Don't look at turn your head away. Can you spell quantum?
Quantum.
You got it.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I got that.
I was like spelling it so much with AM, but it's a hard word to spell. How often do you use that word, you know? But Blake, so first off, we're going to go into what is quantum computing and then why is it a risk? So Blake, what is quantum computing?
Okay, so it's very complex, but let's try and just keep this as simple as possible. So,
and listener, disclaimer, if any cryptographers are listening, this is for the general public that we're doing this episode, and people like Blake and myself who are not expert cryptographers. So if you're like a very advanced physicist or cryptographer, you know, we may not get everything right, but I think we'll get, you know, the main principles right. But sorry, keep going.
No, that's definitely important to stress. Let's hope I don't butcher this one. But so all computers, they use binary, so 0 or 1. They use binary bits. So what's going to happen is that this is going to change with quantum computing, and you're not going to use binary bits anymore. You're going to use qubits. So that's any number on the spectrum, which means that basically computers are millions times faster.
That's right. So binary meaning two choices, right? Binary situation, 0 or 1.
All right.
Everything's composed of zeros and ones. Imagine if you could use, you know, an infinite amount of numbers between 0 and 1. So we're talking about computer chips that are a million times faster in processing things.
Right. And it's going to get badass. If that comes to light, which it may do and is looking like it will, you know, computing power is going to get really, really badass, and it's going to be, it's going to be pretty crazy.
That's right. And with that amount of computing power, Bitcoin has two main algorithms that make it work. The signature, or for signing transactions, the elliptic curve signature, and the SHA-256 algorithm. I think the signature is for the public and private key, and then SHA has to do with the nonce and the mining and mining blocks on the blockchain. Again, oversimplified there. So that's the threat. Could these algorithms be hacked? And if you could hack these algorithms with a quantum computing chip that could make calculations that current computers couldn't because of just, they're so resource intensive, you know, you could get the private keys of someone's wallet, perhaps create double spends, right? And this is a big problem. So we're going to bring in Andreas Antonopoulos, by far the best orator in the Bitcoin world. Isa, go ahead and play that clip.
We can assume that the NSA has quantum computing currently. So my question is, how can Bitcoin safeguard against quantum computing? Because once that's reached, they'll be able to essentially break into the wallets simultaneously.
That's a very good question. So quantum computing isn't a on-off thing. That's a double pun, actually. It's not like you either have quantum computing or you don't have quantum computing. The question is, how powerful is it? How many bits, how many qubits of quantum computing do you have?
So the main takeaway here is it's not just quantum computing, but remember, we're talking about going from binary bits, which we have now, to qubits, right? But how powerful are the quantum computing chips? You know, how many qubits?
Right. I think it's interesting to think how powerful these computers are going to get. But what's really interesting is who actually has this power. Like who is going to be able to use this?
That's right. Because if everyone has it, then it'll be very easy to do this. But if only a few people have this power, that could be a problem. Could it be some crazy hacker, Craig Wright, or even the NSA? Some people think NSA does have quantum computing power right now. So we're going to play a second clip.
So all I'm saying is, if the NSA has a quantum computer and they really want to people not know that quantum computer, which can also break all of the encryption keys on all of the nukes in the world, all of the communication keys and all of the nuclear subs and all of the military intelligence networks and all of the commercial networks, I don't think they're going to use it to break Bitcoin, if you know what I mean.
It's not just Bitcoin that's in trouble, right? Nuclear codes, military networks. You would think there's going to be a group effort to create quantum resistance, but it is worth noting that the main hashing algorithm for Bitcoin is SHA-256. That was created by the NSA, and NSA has done things behind the scenes before. They've been caught, but it doesn't seem to matter. They keep operating. And so NSA has that power where they want to take down Bitcoin.
It's interesting as well. I think that, just going back to that a little bit, like there is talk as well of kind of big tech companies like Google that are actively researching this. And it's kind of one of those really interesting things where no one knows what work is going on behind the scenes because it's got to kind of be top secret. So it's all speculative. Yeah, I mean, who's going to use it and what are they going to use it for? I guess time will tell, but it's definitely interesting to kind of philosophize and have a think about it, right?
And this is a contentious topic because there's a lot of arguments in the physics community and the computing community about how far away are we from having quantum computers. And some people say, oh, decades. Others are like, oh, 10 years. Others like, oh, there's been some advancements now, and they have like some active prototypes.
The interesting thing is that you're really not going to know until it's happened. That's and how people are preparing now is how things are going to get interesting. That's going to really set the tone of what's to come.
That's right. Antonopoulos wanted to say, remember we talked about the signature algorithm is the thing that could be hacked first, like, private keys and public keys, and that's easier to hack than the SHA-256 algorithm.
Yeah.
But long story short, oversimplifying, if Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, other blockchains can update their hashing algorithms to be quantum resistant, right, to resist quantum computers, then it's all good. It's all gravy. So that's the question. And that's the risk. And like, if you heard, use a Bitcoin address only once. Well, Andreas went on to explain that quantum computing can only attack you when they know the public key. But if you use an address only once and you empty it and use another one, unless you have multiple transactions, your public key is not going to be on the blockchain, right? And you continue to empty it out. So that's a way to protect yourself from quantum computing if it does become a threat. But one big point he made is because you have to upgrade the wallets, right? In order to protect your Bitcoin, you have to upgrade your wallets. But what about all the lost keys? And their estimates of like 4 million lost Bitcoin. And then there's Satoshi's wallet with 1 million, which some people think there's still access to. Some people don't think there's access to. So all those lost Bitcoins, that does seem like a bit of a threat there.
Right. And you've just got to think, okay, so say someone got access to 4 million. Someone's just sweeping through all those addresses, right? Getting all those Bitcoin. What does that mean?
Of the addresses that, the wallets that have not been upgraded to a quantum resistant hashing algorithm, right? And protection, we'll say.
Right. What does that mean for the ecosystem? Like how crazy is it that someone can have that much Bitcoin and just be sweeping it and pretty much just like taking it because no one else has access to it because they have the most computing power? That's a really powerful thing to have that sort of potential control over a market.
Right. This is unlikely, but let's just think of like a Dr. Evil or like I'm thinking of like the villain in like James Bond movie or Austin Powers just like sitting there. What if the NSA right now, they have the technology and they're sitting with this chip and they could hack Satoshi's million?
Think about as well, there are all those wallets right now that are being that people keep highlighting the fact that all these really big Bitcoin wallets, which haven't moved in 3 or 4 years, have started moving. Imagine if the reality is that that's not the original person that's moving them, and in fact they've just been, taken over by a quantum computer. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think quantum computing can be used to explain any weird phenomenon, but we're getting a little bit conspiracy theory-ish here, but hey, it's just something to consider, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people didn't know what it was, and there are some projects, right, that are looking into this. So let's highlight 2 projects. One is called QRL, or the Quantum Resistant Ledger. I don't want to go deep into the project. I know there was some infighting with some of the founders, but long story short, they have an algorithm, right?
Yeah.
That they say can combat future attacks by quantum computers. I think very few people in the world even have the capacity to understand if their blockchain is quantum resistant, right? So I'm not going to pretend to say that I can verify it one way or the other, but they're trying to do it. So that's interesting.
Yeah, like we said earlier, it's crazy how much this is all based on speculation. But if they really are thinking way ahead of the curve here and actually doing that, then that's definitely an interesting project to look at, right?
Right. And of course, Vitalik Buterin, he's looked into this as well. And he has his ideas that maybe when the time gets here, they'll be able to figure it out through the community. And so he realizes, Vitalik Buterin, one of the smartest people in the world, crypto or otherwise, has recognized this as a potential threat, how big it is. Andreas Antonopoulos, another very smart, sharp guy, he doesn't see it to be as big a threat. It's one of the things that sounds very quantum physics. It sounds very threatening. So people are working on it, and the ecosystem is aware of it. There's another technology that I'm actually going to do a special, Blake. It's called Mimblewimble. And this is an advanced type of cryptography. I'm not going to explain it because, to be honest, I don't know what it is, but it's for an anonymous privacy coin. And they seem to think that they have a way to combat that.
Yeah.
And I think Grin and Beam are the 2 main projects that have gotten some hype in the community. But yeah, so I think we covered quantum computing as something to think about in the back of your mind, because remember, we all are so into Bitcoin and its potential for the future, but these hidden risks, if it gets hacked, then we're back to square one, potentially.
Yeah, it's a funny one to kind of dwell on a little bit because, like you just said, Matt, you kind of feel like you're a bit of a conspiracy theorist when you talk about it. But it's a real threat, and it's been like stated publicly that this is a real thing. It's not something that we're just making up to have an entertaining podcast episode. So it's important to understand what it is, and yeah, just kind of dwell on it a little bit. Have a think.
Yeah, and so we're going to finish the episode with two other threats that people don't think about that are also there, I think more so than quantum computing, for people that are just investing in projects from an investment standpoint, or even just getting involved and putting their time into, because you can invest money, which a lot of people like to do, but you can also invest time, meaning that if you're a developer or a marketer, you work with a cryptocurrency project and you give your time, which is a scarce resource. I think we don't talk about that enough. So you join this new crypto project, and what if the team gets bored or they don't lack the incentives? They've raised a bunch of money in Bitcoin and Ethereum, and they're like, I could cash out now. Maybe they lose that hunger. They get stressed in the bear market. They find that the problem they're trying to solve, putting anything on the blockchain, there's some complex real life problems that they have to deal with. They might just give up. And that's already happened. There's a lot of Bitcoin projects that haven't had, oh man. So listeners, GitHub is where, basically coders submitting code to the project and making improvements and upgrading. There's a high percentage of projects that have like very few to no code commits in the last 2 to 3 months. And that is a much bigger threat, at least right now, than quantum computing.
Yeah, I think as well, it's there are several reasons why that happens. One is simply that people just aren't managing money well. Like you see some of the ICOs where people raise literally tens of, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, and they've never had access to that sort of money before. So you have all this money and someone says, go build a project. And then you go spend it all on like a brash marketing campaign. And before you know it, you're like, okay, wait, we need to last like 4 or 5 years here to actually realize this project.
Or even worse, right? Did they not hedge their bets? Did they not either using like shorting, kind of financial trading mechanisms, or selling the US dollar? Did they not take out some of that Ethereum that they raised at $200 that went to 800? Did they take any out at 800 so they'd have a less volatile, at least in the short term, currency at hand to manage a potential bear market? Did they protect against the downside? And we're not sure.
Yeah, it was just so unregulated when it all happened, and it happened so quick that, obviously there are going to be a lot of casualties, and there definitely have been in the last few months.
Yeah, and I don't think just regulation, Blake, but also, did they have like a finance person on the team that they listen to that's like, hey, we need to manage this newfound wealth we have?
Yeah, maybe regulation is the wrong term. I'm very opposed to regulation, but I just think that there was literally free flowing money that just went into the ecosystem, not necessarily into the hands of people that could really handle it.
That's right. And a final one that people don't think about as much is the token itself. Okay, so you've heard the term crypto economics, right? And game theory, but it's basically about the economics of how a blockchain works, the incentives to keep the blockchain, and then the incentives of the token for people to buy, use, and store the token, right? Because storing is important, because if people only buy it just to use it, then it won't keep the same amount of value if people aren't consistently holding it. And so what I mean to say is there's some great, blockchain projects that will succeed and will be useful and add to the world. But it's possible that the token itself does not capture value, meaning that, if you own this token, it may never go up in price, even if the project succeeds, which is another concept that I don't hear being discussed enough.
Yeah, it's an interesting one as well when you speak to a lot of these Bitcoin OGs that will tell you, well, why has this project created a token when Bitcoin can do the exact thing it needs? It's an interesting predicament, and I agree. What happens if the project never catches on? Like, what is, it basically is just money down the drain.
100%, man. And finishing off here, this is maybe the biggest risk, I'd say 2 right here, is custody. One, not having control of your keys. If it's in an exchange and that exchange gets hacked, that's not so hidden, but Blake, you mentioned it, and that's, Mt. Gox, and exchanges continue to be hacked in 2018, right? But related to that, it's kind of like the inverse. Not just having control of your keys is that important, but having access and passwords. Like if you just store crypto away on a hardware wallet, and I believe in hardware wallets still, but one hidden risk is how many people have just forgotten their keys or lost their hard drives with hundreds or thousands of Bitcoins on it. Many smart people in the space, they've controlled their keys, but they've lost them. And that seems to be just as big a risk as custody, meaning that, if you have your keys stored away 5 years from now, are you going to remember where you stored that, 24-word passphrase or You have to remember passwords. Human error, I think, is vastly underrated. And listeners, we did an episode with Paul Poi, a very deep thinker who runs the excellent Edge Wallet, who goes into that, some other hidden risk of Bitcoin. I encourage you to check that out on Humans of Bitcoin. But I think that's the final risk we have, Blake.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think custody is definitely a big issue. And it is crazy to think that we're told to make up this insane new password or whatever it is to try and protect your cryptocurrency. But there aren't that many mechanisms in place right now to really make sure you can find it. Someone says to you, oh, just think of something you remember. But when you're put on the spot like that, I've personally, got ledgers in the past, and you open them up and you're like, okay, where am I going to store this? And you think of some really absurd place, like how you're going to make this work. It's difficult to remember that sometimes. So you got to be very careful with this stuff. And hopefully there are new mechanisms that come out to solve this problem in the future.
Right. It's like I dug a hole at the golf course at this like island resort in like Vietnam or something. It's like something crazy. And then you like go there and things like that are going to happen.
Yeah.
I'd say the safest in terms of being hacked, unless people can hack your brain. And that's like a whole nother thing there. That's a sci-fi movie, even more than Bitcoin. But if you can memorize a 24-word phrase, literally the only way you could be hacked is if you tell it to someone. So then it's like, well, okay, what if you get hypnotized? There's actually this drug in Colombia. I'm not making this up. It's called scopolamine in Colombia. That's like a truth serum. And so basically, Blake, if you get dosed with this, and it's like a dust, you could like blow dust on someone, and it affects them. Or like you put it in someone's drink. I could put it in your drink. I'd be like, all right, Blake, if this is true, there's a Vice documentary which you can link to. Blake, take me to your apartment, give me all of your stuff, load up my van, load up your computer, your bike, your golf clubs, and also give me your Ledger wallet and the 24-word secret phrase. And you would do it on this substance. I'm not lying.
Oh, man. Oh, no.
Truth serum. Also concussions. What if you have to memorize a phrase, you get a concussion, and hopefully you recover okay, but maybe your memory is not the same anymore and you can't remember that. A 24-word phrase. That's something that I could see being forgot with a concussion. So anyway, this was our Keeping It Real. There are some hidden risks that you should be aware of episode. We're going to kick off 2019 with a bang for sure. Anyways, listeners, 2019, I hope you have big plans for your work, crypto, learning. Email us at podcast@bitcoin.com. What do you want to see us cover on the show? It's been a fun year, and we're both looking forward to continuing next week in 2019.
Exciting times ahead. And looking forward to seeing you all next week.
And make sure to subscribe, leave a review, share on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, MySpace. Get us some reviews, some subscriptions. Get this show out to as many people as possible. We appreciate it so much. All right. Sayonara.
Thanks for listening to the Bitcoin.com podcast network. To learn more about our shows, visit bitcoin.com/podcast. Bitcoin.com podcast network.